Welcome back, everybody. So the first thing we're going to do is start off with a Facebook post from Mom's Facebook. So I'll give you a minute to pause so you can read through this, unless you're intending to read some of this.
I'm gonna give them a heads up on it. Yep.
Okay, so she'll give you a heads up on the post, but you can also pause to read.
So what that's gonna tell you is that the UK and the US have been working together with all their cool stuff to track a tanker. Remember, ghost ships. I think we talked about ghost ships on here before. Maybe we didn't. Maybe it was just her and I.
Yep, it was just you and me.
There are things called ghost ships that move around the oceans, sneaking their way in places when there are sanctions on things. So those ghost fleets have operated all through Biden. They operated during the Russia-Ukraine war when there wasn't supposed to be oil going from point A to point B. Ghost fleets were taking it there. So because we know that there are ghost fleets out there, what Trump has been doing is saying, they're not ghosts to me. So he has seized 2 tankers already of oil that was from Venezuela going somewhere. So if you want to click on this picture, you're going to see that 5 hours ago, well, 6 hours ago, they had found the ship, and that's where it is in the North Atlantic, right off of UK there, and then they were going to seize it. So I thought it would be cool. This gives you a little idea of what they used, but I've got the video of them seizing it. So we're gonna listen to Steve Bannon from War Room right after it happened with one of the specialists that is a former Delta chopper driver, I think, pilot. I think that's what he was. And so you're going to get to hear a little bit about the special forces, a little bit about how we do things, how our military works, but you're going to see the night vision as well of how it all works. And I thought that would be cool.
Trafficking. I need all the foreign, and Ruby, I think, gave him a message yesterday. I need the CCP guys out. I need the Russians out. I need Hamas out. I need Hezbollah out. I need the Cubans out. And if there's any more Iranians that are not Hamas and Hezbollah, they got to go too. He wants all that out. And most importantly, the redirection of the oil. I think it's $2 billion yesterday that he redirected on vessels to the United States away from the CCP, and they lost it already. They've come up and they had a press conference, I think, this morning with the head, I think, an interior minister, head of oil, and she just went off about almost, I'm not saying it said it was an act of war, but we're getting there. And Pete Heggs of the day said it's a blockade, not a quarantine. But in everything that's happening on this, probably the most important is this vessel. Todd Woods joins us. Todd, you've got, in all your news sites and everything, you cover the United States, but you also do a great job in Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. There's a vessel out there that people have been tracking. Turns out it's a Russian vessel, I get. I talked to you the other night when I saw some aircraft, and I thought maybe they were pre-positioning for some activities in the Middle East. And you corrected me because you're an expert. I said, no. I think this is for something else. I don't think these are going to go to the Middle East, near the Middle East country, you think, at least not for now, because they can't get there. We've had helicopters around this vessel. Can you get us up to date on what's that? Have we actually seized? Has the Coast Guard or the United States Navy or the CIA, have we actually seized this Russian vessel on the high seas, sir?
Yes, it's now in full U.S. control. The Secretary of War put that out, that it's called the Bella 1 or the Marinera. It's changed its names a few times. What you see there are soft helicopters, special operations helicopters from 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment and at Fort Campbell. They were deployed, and what you saw was a bunch of C-17s bringing equipment over to the UK. But what tipped me off was there was also a naval P-8, which you can explain more about that. It's a reconnaissance and surveillance plane, keeping an eye on the tanker. Also a V-22 But these aircraft, we saw pictures of little birds in the area, which are the AH-6, which bring in the shooters to the ship, along with the fast ropes from the Black Hawk you're seeing there.
Wow.
So this was a tier one
ropes.
soft takedown. I mean, this is not that big a deal to take a ship, but this is such a high profile. I'm sure they use tier one assets. SEAL Team 6 likely. There's a lot of rivalry in this group, and I guarantee you the dev group would not let Delta take the ship. So this was an ST6 mission likely, and there's a lot of infiltration methods I won't go into that. They were on the ship before the helicopters got there. Let's just say that. And this is practiced all the time.
Todd, take a second. Just tell the audience, what's a tier one?
So he's going to explain what tier one is, which is interesting. I hope you guys find this as interesting as me. Do you find this interesting, Miranda?
I do, yeah.
Things that we don't get to see. And what you heard Todd Woods say there is that we had assets on the ship already. That
Which
was a
means that they
Russian
were able to
flagged ship.
They were able to get assets on the ship as crew without Russians knowing.
Exactly.
Which is pretty sick, in my opinion.
It's crazy, and they'll reference it again.
Sick,
but I
meaning
wanted,
cool, by the way. Just
I
to be
wanted
clear.
to stop so you guys could really grasp that this is a ghost ship, and that changed its flag. You're not allowed to change your flag once you're out there. They're going to tell you about that as well. And we're not going to watch this whole thing. We're just going to watch this little bit, just so you have an idea, and then she'll link the Spotify down for you so you can listen to all of it and watch all of it if you'd like. But we had assets on a Russian ghost ship that left Venezuela. Just wrap your head around that. I love that. I love that.
That's awesome.
Who's in tier one? You say competitive. I mean, this is what, when I was in the Navy back in the 70s and early 80s, the SEALs, before they kind of went Hollywood, this is their stock and trade. I mean, they're naval commandos, right? And we would sit off the coast of San Diego, off Coronado on weekends, and they would come and try to take the ship. They would do these exercises all the time. But to assume that Delta Force is going to take a ship when you've got the Navy there. Tell us, what's a tier one asset?
Tier one means direct contact with the White House, counterterror, the real deal, serious black missions. That's tier one special operations. SEAL Team 6, Delta, was a while the unit I used to fly for, the 20th SOS. Now that's moved to the Army. There were V-22s, AFSOC, Air Force assets, the tilt rotor in the area also. But this is classic JSOC. Tier one is under JSOC in Fort Bragg, which is Joint Special Operations Command. And this is a classic tier one mission. It's interesting that they were using all types of assets. But obviously the Russian aircraft or the Russian tanker.
Maybe nobody else finds this cool, but I think it's cool to watch the airflow off of things.
Yes.
Watching it off the helicopter, that backdraft.
Yep.
That's sick. Because you don't see that with your own eyes.
Nope.
You can only see that with these night vision goggles. And it's super
that the
cool.
drone has.
Yeah, it's super cool. You can watch that on the helicopter. You can see the exhaust coming off the ship. That's cool to me.
And we can see something that happened just a couple hours ago.
Literally.
This
Thanks to Secretary Nome, because she's the one who put it out there.
Exactly.
Like, this is stuff that people love watching, because it's like watching a SEAL team movie.
Yep.
But it's real life. Like, this is actually happening.
And that's why when President Trump said he wants to bring more transparency, this is the type of thing, just like he released right away when the helicopters were going in to Venezuela. And of course the bombings and homie in the cuffs on the USS Iwo with the goggles and the headphones. That stuff was released right away. You didn't have to think about it. I remember when they captured Saddam Hussein, how long that took, and how much do I even believe of what I saw anymore?
And how convenient that they killed him, but there was never a body and he was just dumped at sea.
No. Yeah. No, I said Saddam Hussein, didn't I?
Yeah?
Yeah, that was Osama bin Laden.
You're right. I mixed them.
Yep, I had to be straight on that
I
because
switch those often.
because
Saddam Hussein and Osama bin
Saddam
Laden.
we did see executed.
Yep.
And that wasn't
It was Osama that we did not. You're right.
exactly. And so I've been watching this ship. I don't know if you guys knew anything about this,
I
but
didn't.
I've been watching this ship and I've been waiting for the tracking since last night. It's like, man, why they know it's out there. They needed to try to find it, which you'll hear a little bit of I think about how that was found, and then we'll end the video. And there's a whole lot more you can listen to, but it gives you a little idea of what the UK used, what Scotland used, and what we used. So that joint effort was really cool.
It's allegedly a Russian tanker, but it was reflagged a few weeks ago or a few days ago. So I don't think
that's the
this is
illegal
as big a
part.
legal issue that we were talking beforehand. You know, how can you just reflag a tanker at sea? I'm not a naval expert. I'll have to ask some people about that. But I think that there's a lot of talk that they got there before the Russians could get there to assist the ship. Well, I'm saying these guys were on board before anybody knew anyone was in the area, and I won't go into their methods, but that's how they roll.
Yeah.
So and then they brought the
Todd,
ships,
hang on.
troops
Todd,
yeah.
I'm gonna hold you to the break. We got Andy Harris, the head of the House Freedom Caucus, on this all-day
Sure.
conference yesterday with President Trump gave that monumental speech. Just one, I don't want to bury the lead, and the reason I have you on is, one, you're an expert. You flew with the Air Force pilot as a special operator, and so you have expertise in the area. But you also have news sites that cover, I think, Ukraine and the Eastern Europe and the conflict in Russia better than anybody. I want the answer when we get back. The operation and how it was done is amazing. Once again, our military is just incredible. However, it's a Russian ship. Whoever they got the flag of the day, it's a Russian ship, and that kind of raises the stakes. It's one thing to blockade off of Venezuela,
True.
and take these and tell the CCP, hey, you're not getting your oil, although that's ratcheted up. But supposedly President Trump's so easy on Putin, they seized a Russian ship today. Todd Woods is with us.
So we have for you here the second portion of the show, Steve Bannon's show on Spotify.
We ended up having to go to hour 2 to be able to get the rest of Todd Wood's interview because he had a representative that had to jump in when he had a chance to jump in because he's on the floor. So Bannon always takes the rep when he's gonna come, and the other guy gets put on hold. So in order to see Todd Woods, you're gonna have to see him in 2 different episodes.
Yep, and that's why there's a bit of a cut here too, because we had to go find his second portion here. But this is the rest of what he was saying.
Reporting he has that backs up that thesis. He put the story out and it's blown up. Todd, but Pete Hegseth, who oversaw that, we had a quarantine, and Rubio said it. He says, look, the way we're going to do this is use our naval forces. We have, as President Trump says, a vast armada off the coast of Venezuela. We've had it there for a while. It's a carrier strike group. We've also got an amphib ready group. I think there's 12 to 14,000 fleet Marines and sailors off there. We're going to use that smartly with the quarantine to leverage their oil policy and other things. And yesterday we redirected $2 billion, I think 50 million barrels of oil to the United States of America and away from the Chinese Communist Party. Today, Hegseth says it's a blockade, and in naval terms, as you know, that's an escalatory. That's bigger than a quarantine. At the same time, on the high seas, special operators, JSOC, seized essentially a Russian vessel. And as you said, you believe that there were special operators on the vessel even before the helicopters came in. A retired Air Force general has gotten to one of the war room, engine room guys and saying, hey, tell Bannon and Todd, I think there's more than oil. It's kind of riding heavy in the light and seas. I'm thinking it's dropping off more than oil at various places. He believes there's something else on that ship. So walk us through what happened. How was it taken? Is this America? Is this an act of war? We go up the escalatory ladder. Is this an act of war against Putin and Russia? Is President Trump putting it on notice? We're not going to play any games here, sir.
Steve, well, the op has been practiced a lot. I mean, this is done in JSOC via exercise all the time. So well rehearsed, nothing new there. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary with them boarding the ship via heliborne assault. And as I said, likely they were on board or close to it well before those helicopters got there. As far as what's going on geopolitically, I see this in a bigger picture. It's obviously hemispheric defense. I mean, it's the Monroe Doctrine, the Donroe Doctrine, whatever you want to call it.
Bingo.
But if you look at it from a bigger perspective, it may be a way to peace in Ukraine, right? If we can get Russia and at least out of Venezuela and other areas in our hemisphere, then maybe there's a deal to be made in Ukraine for peace. Europe doesn't want that, and I see this as the big struggle is to get that war ended, and we obviously are protecting our hemisphere. So maybe there's a deal. Okay, you know what? You're going to get what you want in Ukraine, but we want you out of these areas.
Okay, but hang on. I see what you're saying. Hang on, I see what you're saying. The sector, but spheres of influence. But just yesterday, and I've got a whole team coming on at 5 because we're going to address this. We got to make some time to do this. In Paris yesterday, and I think Witkoff and Jared are over there dealing with. They're having meetings with the Syrians and the Israelis to get that thing settled down. Zelensky shows up. They got a sidebar meeting, and now I hear not just about American security guarantees, and the Germans were not there for the signing, but the French and the British have essentially signed an agreement with Zelensky. Now, the Germans are not party to this. The Americans are not party to this, although they're leaking all kind of information that we will be party to it, to set up actual military hubs, I guess it's called, of troops. Not a written security guarantee, not a contract, but near the line of contact with wherever the ceasefire is and wherever the Russian army is and wherever they agree. Maybe they back up an inch, maybe they stay where they are, but wherever that line of contact, these military hubs will be up there with troops of France who can't afford it and the British who can't afford it. But this is what you're doing. How could...
So I think we'll end here. There's a lot more. I would encourage you guys to go and listen to the rest of this, because
and I will have them linked.
There is a lot more, but I have a feeling that because this stuff is so in my wheelhouse, I won't know where to shut myself off. And you're going to have a video going on forever. What you need to get from this is hear when Steve says Europe doesn't want the Ukraine-Russian war to end. You'd need to understand that.
If they did, it would be ended by now.
And then what did he say? That Germany is out. They tapped out. We're not giving you any guarantees. America says we're not giving you any guarantees. But the UK and France have now committed to troops on the ground in Ukraine near the front line. So they're going to send their best and brightest into the meat grinder. Nobody understands what a meat grinder this is. Russia is just grinding the Ukrainians into nothing. And President Trump said last month, I think, don't quote me if I remember right, 5,000 dead. So now France and UK are committing troops. Why? You always have to ask why. President Trump has separated himself from Europe. I believe he's washed his hands of Europe, to be honest, because he's gone into just hemispheric defense. And I need to get you guys up to speed. I've been putting off explaining the rules-based order after World War II and how that was geared toward Europe and what that did to us. Also, the Bank of London, how that is all mixed in. And then all of the banks that are off the books were started from the London Bank in the Cayman Islands. And so it's this big money laundering machine, and the rules-based order that was put in place after World War II, Trump has smashed that. It no longer exists. That's not happening anymore. So you're seeing a complete reconstruction of the globe with President Trump. He is making new allies. When you think about, let me see if I can remember this. I hadn't planned on discussing this, but it makes sense here. Miranda, remember the word crink. CRINK. What does that mean? You remember bricks because I taught you about bricks.
I don't know, Crank.
Crink is, the C is China.
Always is.
The R is Russia.
I is
The
India.
The I is Iran here. And
Lord.
then the NK, North Korea. That's the new axis of evil. There is an axis that has come together. And President Trump knows that. We don't, in World War II, where's Churchill? Where's Churchill? We don't have a Churchill now. We need allies. What do we have? NATO? That's nothing.
Good
That's
luck.
nothing. President Trump needs his own allies, and he's been shoring them up. And
Argentina.
and the Saudis and the UAE. So he's bringing his alliance together because he knows that axis is out there. And he's trying to we are in a cold World War III, whether you like it or not.
True.
And President Trump is playing to win. He knows that
he's playing for us to not have to be in a real World War
in a hot war.
Because I would like to avoid that.
And so what he needs to do, he needs to make sure that he can topple crank. Good word for you to remember. You just need to topple crank. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. So
Which, if you think about it, is probably the scariest countries of today. When you really look at what we're looking at.
And China and Russia has its own oil to a degree. China does not. China gets fueled by Venezuela and Iran.
And now that
and some Russia
dude is gone, Maduro's captured.
Then he needs Iranian oil. Iran they're about to top. Remember Zimbabwe before it completely was decimated economically. You couldn't buy a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow of money because the money was devalued. That's what's happening with Iran right now. They're at 56% interest. And there are people that can't even afford a loaf of bread because of the devaluation of their money.
Good golly.
So there are people in the streets. They are trying to topple that disgusting regime that's been in power for 46, almost 47 years. Get the clerics out of there because they want the royalty, the regal, the Shahs back in again. And so with Iran teetering like that financially, they're not going to be able to be getting oil to China, which means you're cutting China off now. You're cutting Russia when you're taking things from them. Iran about to topple. North Korea, little rocket man, he kind of stays on his own. Shh, quiet. Forget about me. But he's got his own thing happening.
Do you think that they're hauling like munitions or something?
See, that's what I want to know. And I'm going to be following it because when you've got a retired general that's reaching out, or a retired admiral, what did he say?
I don't remember.
That reached out to
someone,
the war room.
Yeah.
Either a general or an admiral said, because of
they're riding heavy.
Yep. They're riding heavy, which means that there is a lot more than just oil. And he wouldn't tell Steve that if he didn't know beyond
a shadow of a doubt
that it is. So I'm going to be watching this. I'm going to be watching this story. I'm going to be watching to see what they find because we're on that now. So we know what's in there now. It just has not been revealed to us yet. So there's your mystery.
If we find out that they're hauling munitions to somewhere like Venezuela, who's trying to position themselves against us.
Because Maduro was taken, they're trying to get something out of Venezuela.
And that's what I think, is they put it on the ship to try to get it out.
So here's,
that they didn't see it was there.
Here's something you need to know. There's a Poseidon that is used by the UK, which is a spy plane specifically that finds submarines. Okay. So, and if you listen to all this, you'll understand what happened. That found right before we got there, that system found a Russian sub about ready to get on board that tanker. So tell me what was in that Russian sub. Troops? People that were going to defend it now that it was up in the North Atlantic and just about over there to where it was going to be over to Russia? What was on that sub? That sub was swarming right there. Freaky stuff, man. And why is the sub wanting to be near an oil tanker if it was just oil?
Tanker.
Exactly. So there's your mystery for tonight.
For real.
And you're welcome.
Stay tuned for more updates.
Bye.
We'll see you in the next one.